Wow, this is quite a great turnout for
Mm.
our Shamans Directory members meeting. And we're going to get started right away. Usually we have a check-in where people share what's been going on in their life over the past month. And then we have an opportunity for people to bring client cases forward for other shamanic healers and teachers to help to troubleshoot difficult cases. But we thought for our last meeting of the year, we would do something that we've been hoping to do for at least a year now, which is to start having our members offer talks for other members. And so David has graciously offered this month. And so I want to read a short bio before he gets started. David Cumes, MD, was born in South Africa and received his medical training in Johannesburg. Specializing in urology, he has been a teacher at Stanford Medical Center and currently has a private practice in Santa Barbara, California. David is a Western trained surgeon steeped in the allopathic paradigm of medicine, but he is also a healer. He's the author of several books: Inner Passages, Outer Journeys, The Spirit of Healing, Africa in My Bones, Healing Trees and Plants of the Lowveld, Messages from the Ancestors, Mpofu's Grandmother's Loving Lessons, and The Source, the story of an indigenous healing center in remote South Africa. Initiated as a Sangoma in 2002, David is a bridge between Western medicine and indigenous healing wisdom. His roots are in Africa, but he is also convinced that since humanity began there too, so did the first healing techniques. His quest is to bring the primal essence of these methods back to the West. We're honored to have David as a member here at Shaman's Directory. And our topic for today is the shaman pollution, tricksters, and witchcraft. And I just want to do a very short disclaimer that, as with all shamanic teachings, understandings of pollution, tricksters, and witchcraft differ from one tradition to another. So please receive today's teachings as reflections of the specific region of these lineages and David's teachings rather than universal truths. So thank you, everyone, and I'll turn it over to David.
Well, thanks so much for inviting me. I'm really privileged to do this. It's a tricky subject. Thanks for saying that this is my view that I've learned from the African perspective, but there are many views, but I think the principles are the same, and I hope that it'll be useful to you. And I'll just share my screen and we'll start off with PowerPoint. There's going to be a lot of information, but don't feel like overwhelmed. Think of it as like a journey and take what you want from the journey and leave the rest behind. It's going to be recorded. So if you like to visit it on YouTube later, there's plenty of opportunity. But I want to give you quite an extensive survey from my own experience because you are all in the field. So I'm not talking to just regular people. Okay, so firstly, we have to think about diagnosis, and all of you have got your own method of diagnosis. So this is mine, the African bones with other objects. It's kind of like a psychospiritual CAT scan, so you can make pretty good diagnoses of all the things I'm going to be talking about. Remember that there's no light without dark, no sacred without profane, no good without evil, no positive without negative. So all of you that are in the field, regard this as a challenge. There is no growth without conflict. So we're going to talk about how we can grow with the conflict. So it's also good to talk about the anatomy and if you like, the pathogenesis of what's going on to understand it better. And briefly speaking, we're going to talk about the causes. Spiritual intrusions are of two really varieties. One are earthbound spirits stuck between the worlds. The other are intrusive, usually family members who have abused us, who are haunting the living in order to get forgiveness, because this will relieve them from their karmic sins to some extent. There obviously are other intrusions that you can pick up along the way. Sometimes even altered states of consciousness make one more vulnerable when one is in the field. A little bit about true possession, which, really it's happening. This is where a spirit takes over the body completely so that it can enjoy sentient pleasures. They come from the hell realms where their cravings get worse, and they can't inhabit anybody unless they're completely broken in terms of their aura, soul loss, or severe soul sickness. The interesting thing is CNN just did a thing on it about exorcism, and apparently the priests are really in the churches are having many, many more people coming for exorcisms now than ever before. I think because of social media, they said, and a lot of abuse and soul sickness and soul loss. We're not going to talk about that. So pollution and ritual impurity, this is when the spirit energy was there, but now it's no longer there. And finally, witchcraft and sorcery, which is another order of severity. All of these can cause maladies, and they can be just about anything. They can be anxiety, depression, somatic symptoms. Usually it'll attack your weakest link. If you get headaches, you'll tend to get migraines. If you have a weak back, you'll get severe backache. You'll go to a doctor and they won't find anything wrong whatsoever. So the other things that happen are bad luck, trouble with relationships, fighting in the family, trouble at work, and so on. And it's very, very subtle and hard to put your finger on it. Witchcraft sorcery is worse than any of those things. Remember that some of these people, intrusions or earthbound spirits, they don't mean any harm, but the energy around you can make you not well. So you've got to get rid of them. So I talk a bit about pollution or ritual impurity, which is very much an African thing. We're going to talk about the law of contagion, but in a sense, we are contagious by so many things today in our food and our water, in electronics and so on. But these are more spiritual things, except for sickness, which is on the list there, which is sort of a thing that will happen if you're in the ICU for a week or two and end up in rehab. You're going to be ritually impure and you need to do something about it. So I'll talk about the more spiritual African ones, death. A widow or widower in Africa that's traditional will not go and have another relationship until usually they're cleared by the Sangoma, because the spirit is usually hanging around after death and it's probably going to interfere with the relationship. If you look at the Bible in Leviticus, you'll see that any Israelite who attended to a dead body was not allowed back into the community until they had purified themselves. And on a few occasions, I've been to visit a Sangoma, only to be told that she's officiating at a funeral and she will not see you until she's cleansed herself, before she won't touch the bones. In Zulu tradition, Shaka Zulu was the Black Napoleon of Africa, and his warriors used to come back, and Sangomas used to kill them, at least used to clean them of the people they had killed. And I know that Native American healers do much better with PTSD and their warriors than maybe some of our psychiatrists do. All these things are important. Then blood is a polluting substance. It holds the energy of the person. And if you look again at the Bible, the Israelites were given certain animals that were more pure to eat, but they had to be exsanguinated by cutting their internal jugular vein. And then after that, put sea salt on the meat to suck out the blood. So blood can be problematic in terms of pollution and what you eat. In addition, menstrual blood is also thought to be polluting. For instance, women are not allowed into the Native American sweat lodge on their moon cycle. And the traditional Africans know that if they sleep with their partner on their menstrual cycle, it might affect them. I remember asking a Sangoma why this was, and he said something interesting. He said, a woman is much too powerful for a man on a moon cycle, so it's best not to get too close to the blood. Roadkill, of course, applies even more to the blood story and the death story. The spirit of the animal might actually be hanging around, and it might be actually more than just ritual impurity. A journey to the wrong place. I always worry about people who go to visit Auschwitz, especially those kind of places where there's been a lot of terrible things that have happened. Unless they're very sensitive, they should, unless they're not sensitive, they probably shouldn't go. Now, land can be polluted by atrocities. And not only that, but by satanic rituals. The interesting thing is that there's water on the land. We'll talk about it, but water has consciousness, resonance, memory, vibration, and it holds the energy of that satanic sort of force. So that in reality, you may not be able to cleanse it. I highly recommend that you don't go and try and cleanse these places unless you're very experienced. I've been told by my ancestors not to do it at all. And my foreman who worked with me on my healing center in South Africa was being initiated, and he was sent to do this work. And he was told, you throw the bones before you go, and if they say you can go, you throw the bones outside the homestead. And if they say you can go in, you throw the bones a third time when you're in there, and you get the hell out of there if it says get out of there. So land and objects are important. Objects are things like military paraphernalia that have killed people, Nazi types of paraphernalia, things from the Civil War and so on, a samurai sword that's ancient, maybe old masks that you've gotten in Africa or in New Guinea or something like that. You don't know where they've been. It's best avoided. They may carry the energy of a witch or a sorcerer. Interestingly enough, my ancestors are not very much in favor of Tonglen, the British, at least the Buddhist uh, uh, practice of breathing in the suffering and the grief and sickness of the planet, converting it into white light, and then sending it back to the planet. They say that only if you're very experienced and a strong bodhisattva or a Bompu or one of these guys, you should probably not do this kind of work, as commendable as it is. So again, there's these ritual impurities which also have to be attended by the same kind of methods. All of them can be treated by what I'm going to be telling you about later. We also have to look at what we've got inside of us, our ego, our monkey mind, our survival mind, and the primitive brain, our flight or fight reaction, our shadow, or the ancestors call it the evil inclination, as opposed to the higher self, spacious or big mind, and the good inclination. We have to look inside and see if maybe it's not coming from outside of us, it's coming from inside of us. The sorcerers and witches and intrusive spirits and all these things will aggravate your ego, your monkey mind and shadow, and try and get subordinate the things on the right-hand side, whereas your guides and your ancestors are going to do the reverse. So it is important to do your spiritual practice and know about these factors as well. So just to give you a sense of what we're dealing with, there are all grades of difficulty and of severity. And depending on what you do, if you're doing the heavy lifting, you're going to be dealing with the bottom part. If you're not doing very heavy work, maybe you're just doing readings, or you must doing massage work or something like that, you're going to have mosquitoes at your spiritual picnic. These are tricksters that just want to interfere with you. I remember once I was tracking with a bushman. We were going hunting a little antelope, and they have to go very close to the animal in order to shoot it because they've got poison arrows. They're amazing trackers. So this guy was really very close, and he was a good shot. I'd seen him shoot his bows and arrows, and the arrow went way off beam, and he said, Parabisi. Parabisi is the trickster god. So they will interfere with anything that's going on. This is usually when we are stuck in the lower chakras, in their survival chakras. We may have those, although occasionally I see people who are very, immature along the path, but yet they're getting a lot of resistance, and that's because they have power, and the tricksters are trying to cut them off at the pass. Now, for most of you, I think you're going to be dealing with wasps, or what I call the dark forces, which are slightly different to the spiritual mafia that I like to label, who are really perverted human spirits usually. And if you're really doing the heavy lifting, if you're going to do soul retrievals, if you are reversing witchcraft, or if you're getting rid of intrusive spirits, you're going to face what I would call rattlesnakes, or in Africa, mambas, dark forces and spiritual mafia on steroids. That's why I've got them in caps. So a little bit about the cosmology to make it more sense to you. There are basically three realms. There's the causal realm of the enlightened beings, the astral realm where we go to reconcile with our karma and we come back again. Most of us are going to have guides or ancestors in the astral realm. Some will have causal spirit guides. And then, of course, the spiritual mafia and the dark forces usually inhabit the lower realms. So if you look at the figure, the inner circle of green is, say, the individual. The white around it would be the family constellation, which may be responsible for intrusive spirits later on when people pass on. And then the green around that would be the community. And in the community, but really outside of it, is the witch and the sorcerer, the shaman, the sage, the saint, the guru, the priest. And the shaman is really the one who is the most experienced at dealing with these forces. There's no doubt that the others can do it, but it's kind of our job to do this. Remember that a witch or sorcerer is only as powerful as the spiritual mafia that connect to them. They would not be able to do their work properly, and they're professionals. They've learned the tricks of their dark arts. I'm talking about dark witchcraft, not the dark occult, not Wicca, and not the light side of what was, which is called witchcraft. So earthbound spirits, of course, are between the veil and us, and then outside the veil, which you can see the outer circle, are the dark forces, intrusive spirits, the lower astral. We'll talk about what we call the evil ancestors, the spiritual mafia, and so on. Remember that as healers, we are only as powerful as the guides or the ancestors that are around us. And if you have a powerful witch and a sorcerer, we may not be capable of dealing with it. We might have to refer to somebody else. So I want to talk about more insidious forces, which, we must be aware of, because the ancestors say whatever doesn't make you more of you makes you less of you. There's no staying the same. So there are spiritual vampires, that suck you dry in a sense, spiritually, energetically. They want to hook their wagon to yours or ride on your coattails. They will leave when they've got what they want, and it's best to try and get rid of them in a nice way as soon as possible, always with a sort of a more of a gentle, loving vibration. Then there are seemingly normal people who seem somehow to be very, very successful. They're usually charismatic, they're usually good looking. Some of them are politicians, and they are selfish, self-centered, often narcissistic, and are, without their knowledge, giving permission to the dark side of the spirit world to help them. And therefore, they are often much more successful than you would imagine. These are the ones we have to be very careful of, because they have witch-like properties, but they wouldn't know that they're witches. They wouldn't know that they're sorcerers. And we don't consider them as that. We just think they're very successful people. But they're around a lot. Then there are non-human intrusions. Remember, they can be animal intrusions. I remember once in my first trip to the Bushman way back, a woman came to a healer and said she'd killed a puff adder, which is kind of the equivalent of our rattlesnake. She was hungry. She cooked it and ate it and didn't feel well. And what he did is he sucked out the spirit of the snake from her, and she went on her way feeling great. I once had to euthanize a dog, and I didn't have enough drugs to do the job. Injected everything I had into the heart. She was a bitch who had a big tumor coming out of her vulva, and my teacher gave me permission to euthanize her, but I had to euthanize her in a sort of a brutal way. And when I went to my teacher, I said, look, I don't feel good about this. I think I need some cleansing. And he said, no, you did the right thing. Don't worry. I gave you permission. Get over it, kind of thing. Sometime later, I was traveling with a group, and a Sangoma threw bones for me and said, no, you have an intrusive spirit. He sent me to a woman who does Femba. Femba is a kind of psycho-spiritual exorcism. And this woman sucked out the spirit of a dog from me after a very advanced ritual. So remember, there are not only human tricksters and spirits or whatever, but they are non-human. And things like the golem, or what they call the tokolosh in South Africa, they're not human, but they're sort of almost like humans. They're in between the humans and non-humans. And then there are lower astral intrusions. These are what the ancestors call our our evil ancestors. They might be our ancestors. They have their own agendas. They think they know better, but they don't. We have to be very careful of them. Not everybody who is a spirit is the kind of one that you want. They want to make you their solution, their absolution. Sometimes they will favor their own progeny and put you in touch with a dream or some manipulation, in touch with somebody else who's not to your advantage, for a romantic endeavor or maybe a business venture, which is for the sake of their progeny and not for the sake of yours. These are the lower astral as opposed to the high astral. You all being, I'm sure, either working with high astral spirits, you have to obey the law of free will, and some of you are working, I'm sure, with causal spirits. So let's talk a little bit about major stuff, the witchcraft. Remember that witchcraft and sorcery are not localized in space and time, especially in time. So a hex may have an effect that's lasting and may have an effect that doesn't come on immediately. It might take time to come on. It's the same as healing. Everything that happens with healing can be done for the opposite. So we can use the same tools that the witch uses, and they can use for bad intent the same tools that we use. Um, so the spiritual mafia are the ones to worry about. Those are perverted human spirits. That to them, anything of the light is a reproach to them. And then there are dark forces are not necessarily perverted. Maybe some of them are fallen gurus who now having to go to the lower realms because they will be held to a higher standard. But they can be very tricky as well. So I want to talk about that in quite a big detail because some of you might be dealing with this and some of you might not want to deal with this because, it's good to have informed consent. Spiritual mafia, if you don't interfere with them, if you don't pay their graft, they're usually going to leave you alone. So only if you're starting to go out there and retrieve souls or reverse witchcraft or get rid of intrusive entities, they're going to be worried because you really are doing their work or what they want to kind of support. So I want to just branch on to something else which is not really pertinent to us. But Tricia was talking about the state of the planet, and this, really has something to do with the state of the planet. But these are critical satanic-like forces. And Hillel said, only an ignorant person does not fear evil. Evil is real, and there are people out there, unfortunately, who feel that evil doesn't exist. There are people, even in politics, who feel that somebody like Putin can be dissuaded and can try and see the good. All the Putin archetype, or the guy from North Korea is interested in, is power. And I'm sure they have significant amount of spiritual mafia working on their behalf, as did Mugabe and Idi Amin, and no doubt Hitler and others. So satanic forces and all these people, they're basically about desecration of anything sacred. I'll talk more about the witchcraft side of it because I know this is kind of heavy duty stuff, but it's important to know about it. But I once did a divination for a premier of Limpopo. Limpopo is a province in the northern part of South Africa. And it showed that there was a lot of witchcraft around him, and I gave him medicine to help him. Because he was really a good guy, he was under attack. Later on, somebody found a head of a woman in his garden, and we're going to talk about containers. If we work with the container, it becomes much more powerful for a healing. If witches work with the container, it's much more powerful for a hexing. Now, what's the most satanic thing that some witchcraft witches can do in South Africa? That would be to take a child and take their organs and take it out when they are alive. And now when you cater to Satan in this way, you achieve tremendous power. I actually have a friend in South Africa who is a recovered Satanist, and he said, Dave, you have no idea how powerful these people are. Don't have anything to do with them because they will take you out, and they are all over the place. So this is going on, and if you look at the gangs, the Mexican gangs, the same thing is true. Many of them have altars to Satan. Doesn't matter what you call it. You can call it demons, whatever word you want to use. This is the Sith of Star Wars, whereas Darth Vader is the instrument, is kind of like the witch. So if you look at the radical side of Islam, you look at ISIS and Hamas and now Boko Haram. Boko Haram are now invading into southern Africa. They've come through to Mozambique. They are burning down villages. They are raping women and killing them, and this is going up north as well. And they're killing children. They're killing the children in front of their parents. They're killing the parents in front of their children. And even they will sometimes make the child try and kill the parent. And then, of course, they have them as a warrior, a soldier for them, because that child will never, the soul will be gone. So this is something just to know about because I think there's a lot of pollution that we are suffering. I think we all have a lot of PTSD from what's going on in the planet, and knowing some of it or even not knowing it, I think has an effect on us. Now, some of my ancestors are Kabbalists, so they talk about the dark forces. So those are for the people who are on the enlightenment path. Remember, it doesn't matter whether you're a shaman or curandero or Sangoma, you are up there in the sphere of the Buddhists, and the enlightened folks, because anything that's of the light is going to be a reproach to them. Anything that's doing work against the dark is going to be even more of a reproach to them. So the culmination of evil is really at the bottom in Malkut, which is the earth, basically the earth energy. And as you climb up the tree of life, so the dark forces get more intense. So if you're in the first triad of ego, you can see it at the bottom, ego in the center, with two other sphirot or centers on either side. You're not going to have much opposition at that stage. It's like you're in the lower chakras. When you're in the center with that triad of love, you're going to start getting visible to the dark side of the field, and you will start to get problems. If you get up to the top, which would be the sixth chakra, the seventh chakra, the triad of enlightenment, if you like, this is where you get the true dark forces. The people, maybe, like I said, they're fallen gurus who are now doing their job is to prevent you from going to the light. So this is the kind of thing that some people may be more on the yoga enlightenment path. It's good to know that they are going to have the same kind of trouble, and we're going to have the same trouble as they are. If you look at Buddha, he had 3 tests before he became enlightened. If you look at Jesus, he faced Satan in the desert for 40, during his 40 days and 40 nights. The Hindus have, I'm trying to remember the name, Kali, who's kind of like the equivalent of things of satanic and of Mara. And this is real. It's not just a legend and so on. So for those of you that are up and at the top of the chakra system, you are the heavy duty lifters. This talk will help you, but it'll help all of us because we all will be under attack these days. So the good thing is that the ancestors call it a costly compliment. The closer you come to the light, the more the negative inclinations that's inside of us and the forces outside of us plague us. They attempt to interfere, dissuade, and corrupt. So they work with lies, deceit, and also with temptation. The one way they'll take a Sangoma or a curandero or a shaman out is give him an offer he can't refuse, maybe in a relationship, maybe in a job, maybe in something which feels good, which is really spiritual materialism, but takes you away from what you're going to do in terms of what they want to do. So it's not necessarily something negative. It can be something very compelling, which will take you away from your life path. All negative spirit forces want us to not believe in them. Their biggest ally is making you think that they don't exist or that they're not powerful. Some folks out here that, do shamanic work say, I don't know why you talk about these things. I don't have any trouble from dark forces. I just surround myself with a bubble of light and I'm fine. Well, that might be true if you're doing, the light duty work. They know everything about us that our guides know. They have access to our karmic life book. They are not localized in space and time. They have the advantage of not obeying the law of free will. They can operate regardless. So that seems to be an advantage to them. They are there to sabotage our spiritual progress. It's part of the divine plan. Like I said, there has to be a way, some tension for perfection. You can't get strong unless you are challenged. Their job, of course, is to make transformation and your work feel dreary, or maybe take you away from the path. Remember that you should never underestimate them and never offer a challenge. Always respect them, but don't overestimate them and don't underestimate yourself and your guides and your ancestors in being able to deal with them. So fear is the enemy. The only thing to fear is fear itself. You can counter them with some of the techniques I'm going to talk about, and also with knowing about these things. A few words on free will, which is the cosmic law. We have to ask to receive if we are going to talk to our ancestors. That's why it's a good idea to have an ancestral altar, which you can make requests of. It should be very specific. You can't say, help me with my life. It has to be like, help me find a better healing space or place to do my work better, or something like that. And then, they can help you. But if you don't ask, you can't receive unless you're under, your life is threatened, they can intervene. So I want to talk about how sometimes we think we are doing good, but we're not. Because if we are abrogating the law of free will, in a sense, we are neutralizing our karma, or maybe we're getting negative karma. So this is directly from the ancestors. They say another cannot help you neutralize anything you have not really freely, willingly, and deliberately given up. I'll give you an example. A lot of my divination work is with relationships. So someone will come and the bones will say, you have a bad relationship. And they'll say, yes, that's why I'm here. And then I'll say, well, have you had counseling? And they'll say, yes, we have, but nothing really helped at all. And then I'll say, do you want me to check about the prognosis? And they'll say, absolutely. Why don't you check? And then when I check, it says the prognosis looks pretty hopeless. And then, what I'll say to them is, do you want the ancestors, my guides, to help you move away from this person? Not to get rid of the other person, that's witchcraft, but to give you the strength, the courage to leave this person. And they often say, I think so. And when they say, I think so, you cannot help them because they're not committed. You have to have them committed completely. Otherwise, whatever you do is not going to work anyway, but it might be against your karmic profile. Now, here's another one from them. One should beware of mitigating against another's free will, which is the cosmic law. So sometimes Sangomas, especially, and also curanderos, and other shamans, they can work both sides, the light and dark, and sometimes they'll use witchcraft in addition to the healing. For instance, a Sangoma or a witch might heal somebody and then bring them back because they hex them for another healing, and so they become a meal ticket. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is interfering with the law of free will. For me, it's usually something like this. Somebody comes to see me and they say, I'm here because I want to talk about my son. And I'll ask them, how old is your son? They say, oh, he's 30. And I'll say, has he given you permission to do this? And they'll say, yes. If they say, no, I can't do anything. I can't look into his cosmology because it's against the law of free will. If they say, yes, then I can go ahead. Otherwise, if he hasn't given permission, I can only throw for the person's cosmology in relation to their son, which won't maybe be enough from them. Now, in reality, love potions in South Africa are really big. And often the love potion is used to get solicit a woman to have sex with a man. That's witchcraft. But if you are using the love potion to make the person who's really serious about the relationship be all they can be, then that's okay. So there's a fine line between the two, and sometimes those lines are crossed, and it's very important to know that karmically it's not a good idea. I would imagine that many of the soccer teams in South Africa has Sangomas working on their behalf, which is fine if they're making the team work to their capacity. But it's not okay if they're making the other team lose, if you know what I'm talking about. Now, here's another one from the ancestors. Wishing, praying for another's well-being differs from making a ritual for a specific purpose. So sometimes you think about a person and you think, this person's nice. I'm going to pray for them. I'm going to do a ritual. I'm going to cast a spell that's going to heal them. But you don't know if he's going to be healed. He hasn't given you permission. Maybe he likes his disease as a crutch. Maybe he's getting a lot of attention. So in this case, you either have to have the permission as well, which is fine, or you have permission from others to join the group. But what you need to do is just pray for the good of the person, for their well-being, or the Creator's will be done, or something like that. I'm mentioning that because these are important things that can put us in a different sphere of our craft. We need to kind of, as you will see, we need to be impeccable. So let's talk about witchcraft and sorcery, because this is the heavy-duty stuff. It can deprive you of choice. Again, this is direct from the ancestors. The malicious intent of the latter being to control, usually for negative, destructive, and always self-serving purposes. Sometimes witches will collude. They can't stand each other. They compete with each other. They hate each other. But sometimes they'll come together as a group when the stakes are high. I had this happen once or twice in my healing center, where they all colluded, and there was a large group, and the ancestors came and said, "Hey, you better throw for each one of the group and eliminate whoever you say says no." I had 13 people signed up. I ended up with 3 because all their people were, shamanically inclined. They were bringing their own tricksters, their own dark forces to the picnic, and that wasn't going to be good for anybody. Okay, let's talk about witchcraft. Like I mentioned, there are people who don't know they're witches. They're not professional. We're talking about professionals here. I remember tracking with a Shangan tracker in Big Five, a country, with a friend of mine who his father owned this game reserve, this private game reserve, because there were plants there we didn't know, and we were writing a book on plant medicine. And this man was a devout Christian, but his mother was a Sangoma, and she was very powerful. She taught him everything he knew. So he knew all the plants, he knew about witchcraft, and he said, anybody can be a witch. All they have to do is go to another witch and buy a snake from them. In other words, some spiritual mafia type of an energy. And then this witch will bring you anything you want. The snake will bring you whatever you want. It'll bring you power. It'll bring you money. It'll bring you any kind of sexual encounter that you want to engage in. But if you don't feed your snake, your snake will eat your family, it'll eat your children, it'll eat your friends, it'll eat you. So literally, when you've engage in this kind of witchcraft, it doesn't look good karmically, and not only in the long term karmically, but in the short term as well. So basically, a witch has an evil eye, they're spiteful, they have an evil tongue, and they have an evil inclination, which means they have a heart of evil. They have a heart of envy, as opposed to somebody who's not professional, who may have all of these things, but can also solicit help from the other side. So the witches, the traits are in the gates because they don't want you to know who they are. I was often warned that sometimes the witch would come and visit me to try and find out what medicines I had so they could work against me. So the witches, the traitor in the gates, they will try and look good. Usually if you're in a community, everybody will know who the witch is. But if you don't, they can be very charming and can get you under their wing, so to speak. Remember, one of the commandments is do not covet, which means it comes from envy. Do not covet anything that belongs to your neighbor. And witches either want what you've got, or they want to deprive you of what you've got, or they want to destroy what you've got, or they want to get money from other people by doing the same thing for them. And they are powerful, and they do very well financially. They often work through the law of contagion, which we can also use, but the word for us should be really the law of contact. So exuvii, that means parts of people can be very powerful containers. The law of contagion says that when things are in contact with one another, they can affect one another. When they're in contact with one another, they can affect one another. So if you look at the head of the woman in this, the premier's garden, this is something that is in contact with him and his homestead. It can affect him more powerfully than just sending a hex. If a witch can get some of your hair or a nail, they can work it more powerfully through that. If not, they can make an effigy. They can also plant an effigy or a hex or something on the path that you're going to walk on. This may not happen in the West, but it happens in indigenous countries. It's called Chifula in northern Limpopo, and it's very effective. We can do the same thing by planting sacred things in the earth around our healing space to protect us, or planting a sage bush or something like that. So it works both ways. Witches ride on familiars. They often can manipulate animals like hyenas, baboons, snakes, owls. And we often, I wouldn't say often, but on a couple of occasions, they sent snakes to bite, spitting cobras to bite people on our healing center there, especially when there was a group, so that it was undermine the whole point of the group being there. Um, there's a whole other story. So the reality is there's nothing special about that. Your ancestors can do the same thing. Your guides can send you power animals, a butterfly sitting on your hand, a hummingbird, hovering around your head. They're not behaving normally. A red-tailed hawk sitting on your porch looking at you. They're within the normal safety space. They're not outside of the normal safety space. All of them have, because they fear all humans. So these are your ancestors who are, in a way, working the same kind of energy they can do to send an animal, a power animal of support to you, because they can't always talk to you. They want to send something to you. They can do it with a coyote to warn you, and they did it for me with a black mamba. There were lots of black mambas around my healing center. Whenever I saw one that was not coming at me, that crossed my path and it went on its way, I always was very, very careful for the next 48 hours. It's always going to happen in the moment. So if you see a coyote cross your path or be there, be very careful, because there may be something that's going to get you in the next couple of days. It can be a carrier, it can be a warning from your ancestors. If I see a grass snake or a king snake on a hike, it's an endorsement from my ancestors. They're often on the path, and they're not there normally. Often, it's warm out, so they're not there because it's cold. So all these things, whatever works for the dark works for the light. The only good thing is love is more powerful than fear, and everything on the dark side is working through fear. So this slide is very important because it shows you what's going on here. There are two ways things work, whether it's healing or hexing. It works either directly through the belief system on the inner healer or the life force of the person. And placebo is the power of belief to help to heal or cure you. Its opposite, nocebo, is the power of belief to hurt, to harm, or to kill you. Witches and sorcerers use nocebo. Sadly, the medical profession unconsciously uses nocebo by giving people bad prognoses or giving them terrible, scary informed consent. But this is working directly through the belief system on the life force of the patient. The one side is a love vibration, the other side is a fear vibration. But there's also a non-local effect coming from your guides, your ancestors. Distant healing is real. It works. You can do it. There are now medical studies to show that it works if you discount placebo completely. And it works so well that if you could bottle it into a pill, you'd almost be negligent not to use it. There are no double-blind studies on distant hexing, but I can assure you that it works. And it works more powerfully with nocebo and with guilt. So in South Africa, white people usually say, oh, witchcraft only works on Africans because they believe in it. Well, that's not true. It works on them more powerfully because of nocebo. So if somebody has, screwed somebody over in business or maybe slept with their partner, and he knows that now this person has gone to see a powerful witch, now he's scared. He's getting really worried. Why? Nocebo. He's guilty as well, and that's an additional factor. And if this is a powerful witch with distant hexing, that can be as good as a death sentence. It doesn't happen often, but it can happen. And the combination of nocebo, guilt, and distant hexing by a powerful witch working with spiritual mafia can be problematic. All these things, even though they don't affect any one of you, they're really important to know because they're real. They're not just stories in books. Now, the good news is malice sucks up the greater part of her own venom and poisons herself. My experience with some of these witches is that they don't look good. There's an attrition, and with time, it affects them. And the Buddha said that, having anger, hatred, or vengeance in your heart is like drinking poison and then thinking the other person is going to die. So if you can be resilient, and sometimes it just keeps on and on. At my healing center, they never let up with the witchcraft. They don't. It can be relenting, but ultimately it's going to affect them negatively. Not that that's necessarily makes you feel a hell of a lot better. So I want to talk now on the positive side. We've talked about the negative. There's nothing we can't reverse. And these are the similar things, but we're going to talk about the law of contagion, but I rather call it the law of contact and the law of similars. So let's look at the law of contact, because contagion sounds like COVID or Ebola. The law of contact says, again, when things are in contact with one another, they can affect one another. If you have a talisman, if you have an amulet, especially if a talisman has a sacred prayer in it, has medicinal plants in it, you have a locket, it can act as a mirror to reflect negative energy. If you have an altar, it can be a container for the law of contact with your ancestors, with your guides. You go there, you ask to receive, you give gratitude, you are protected through them as well. If you look at sometimes a psychic will ask for a garment of a person, say a lost child or somebody who's lost, and that this is a container so they can make contact with the person and they'll have a better chance of getting a vision of where they might be. A little bit like a dog getting a piece of clothing to smell. But dogs are actually working with energy as well. Probably the smell is only part of it. Like a bushman tracker who's really good is not even following the tracks. He knows exactly where the animal is. He can feel where they are. So the law of contagion is very important, and we can use it. You think of temples and synagogues and churches that have sacred objects in them. You go into the place, even if it's not your tradition, you can feel the power. The mosque, the same kind of thing. But let's talk about the law of similars. The law of similars, and this was way back when with Hippocrates, he said it. And indigenous people usually work their medicines through this law of similars. And homeopathy, of course, is based on this law. If things resemble one another, they can affect one another. If things resemble one another, they can affect one another. So let's look at that. This is a plant. It's actually a tree called kiat in South Africa. It was prolific where I was in my healing center. It's fascinating because you scrape the bark off the tree and the sap is blood red. So the bark of the tree is used to get rid of bad blood, because as we'll see, red is through the law of nature, through the law of aposematism. Red is a protective color. That's why we have a red traffic light. Poison oak's leaves are red. The castor plant, is reddish in color in some places. It's saying, I've got ricin in me. You eat my seeds, and you're going to die. Poison oak saying, you harvest me, you're going to be miserable for 3 weeks with a rash. So bad blood. Red is a protective color. So use red, a red string around you. Often you'll see the yogis who've got a red string around their wrist. You'll also see Latinos have it. They won't tell you it's protection. They'll usually say it's good luck, but it's for protection. Red is good if you've got a garment that you can impregnate with sacred plants and wear it when you're under attack. That'll be good as well. There are many medicines, the roots of which are red, which are used in South Africa for bad blood, for intrusive spirits, for witchcraft, all the things we've talked about. You can use red wine as well, organic red wine, and I'll tell you what to do as a blood sacrifice in terms of the suffering you're having from being attacked. In South Africa, they would also do a sacrifice where they would put blood in your bath, which would make it even more powerful. Obviously, you're not going to do that in California. The law of similars. Here on the left side, you have what's called a buffalo tree. It has a very interesting configuration. There's a straight hook which points up to heaven, and there's a curved hook which points into the ground. The Zulus use this for funeral rites. It's kind of like an abbreviated form of the Tibetan Book of the Dead. The person is buried, they put the branch on the grave. In case they're earthbound, it's telling the spirit, listen, you need to go up to heaven, join the ancestors, your body is in the ground. The law of similars. If somebody dies away from home, they will take a buffalo branch, put it on the coffin, and bring it back and bury it for the same kind of reason. In the middle is figwort. Figwort is very prolific in California, especially in the southern part. It's called Scrofularia nodosa, which means scrofula was the old word for tuberculosis. Nodosa was referring to the roots, which are node-like in the way they look. It was used in the old days for a poultice. It could be used safely internally for tuberculous lymph glands to alleviate the suffering and the pain. It didn't cure them, but it made them feel better, the law of similars. On the right, you have a cross-section of the ayahuasca vine for those that are interested in entheogens. If you connect the dots, you see the hexagon. Hexagon is sacred geometry. The heart symbol in yoga is the hexagon. So this plant is telling you, this is nature informing you about what to do with it. It's telling you if you want to open up your heart to the field, to the other worlds, take me in the right kind of way and with the right kind of intention. If you look actually at San Pedro cactus, which has got mescaline in it, or rather than ayahuasca, it also looks like a hexagon in cross section. Even peyote does. If you look at the grooves between the lobes of the peyote plant. So containers are really important. Container is more powerful than a prayer. You can pray, but if you have a container, firstly, I think it has an effect on subliminally on your limbic system. So your subconscious is really important. But it's also not only a password to the ancestors, to your guides for an outcome, but it's also will enhance the placebo effect. And Credo Mutwa, you can actually read his books. He's a brilliant man. He was a very powerful Sangoma, more of a Sanusi, more of a prophet, who said, with our potions and charms, we arouse in the sick one's brain the will to be healthy. We need to use placebo. Western medicine is trying to discount it. They know it's 30% across the board, but we need to use it with our charm, our charisma, our calmness, our caring, our magic. We can enhance placebo maybe to 100%, like it does at Lourdes when devout Christians go with faith and with placebo to Lourdes and they take of the waters. There are spontaneous remissions of diseases, which I'm sure it happens in shamanic instances as well. So these are really, really important, placebo. I remember once I went to the far north of Botswana with my son because I'd been with a bushman a number of times, but I'd never seen a trance stand, an out of spirit trance dance where the spirit goes into the field to get information, to do healing, and to diagnose. Anyway, the trance dance was done just for the two of us because we'd requested it. And the one healer, after he tranced, they fall down because their soul is now in the field. It's called the little death. Literally, they kind of, it's like a near-death experience. So they fall wherever they are. And this guy fell with his foot in the fire long enough to get a really severe third-degree burn. Afterwards, the woman, of course, took his foot out of the fire. It's not going to be immune for maybe more than a minute or so. So they took his foot out of the fire. After the ritual, I went to him. It was in the middle of the night with the full moon. It was incredibly powerful. And I said, and I looked at his foot. It was fine. There was no evidence of any burn. And then I said, did you see me in the vision? Did you see me when you went out? He said, yes, you're fine. You're very healthy. You don't have to worry. To me, that was better than going to the Mayo Clinic talking about placebo. This, with magic, you're going to, if you can read somebody and do a divination for them and tell them as much as they know that, that's something their mother doesn't know about them, you will enhance the placebo effect significantly. So let's go beyond pharmacology because we're talking now about reversing all the stuff we've talked about, whether it's the mosquitoes at your picnic, whether it's the wasps at your picnic, whether it's the rattlesnakes at your picnic. It's all going to work. going beyond pharmacology, use placebo, really important. Distant healing works. Remember, you are only as powerful as your guides are, and the guides respond to containers, which are really passwords. They, in a sense, they are permission to do the healing. You've got to ask to receive. You've got to give them permission because of the cosmic law. It works through the law of similars and contagion, which we've talked about, and it works very powerfully through plants and plant spirits. So I want to say a little bit about this because, I'm a bit of a plant guy. And power plants, I think anything that has aroma, especially if you dry it, you can use it for incense, is going to be a plant of power. So in reality, you only need one or two plants to do your work. You don't need any more. I was trained differently, and I'm just part of my training. But you can do the same thing with one plant that I can do with many plants. Ritual is very important because the more intense the ritual, the more the containers, the more intention, the more passion, the more courage, the more commitment you put into the ritual, the more the field, your spirits are going to respond. Maybe the Great Spirit himself, or Jesus himself, or her, or the Great Spirit him herself. So this is very important. I think container is not only important for the placebo, but also it'll enhance the effect on the other side of the veil. I'm not sure why, but I think it's about showing increasing amounts of commitment to doing the work, because it takes a lot of work to do. So this is really all that you're going to be doing. You're going to be calling them, your guides, to help you. You're going to be asking for cleansing. You're going to be asking for protection of all the things we've talked about. You're going to be asking for healing. You're going to be asking maybe for dreaming. This is more for yourself, or maybe with some other shaman that you might have to see. So this would be a different thing. And what I recommend is mugwort. It's ubiquitous. It's all over the place. Better if you grow it yourself or you harvest it yourself. If you're going to harvest some of these things like sage, especially white sage, be careful. Don't take too much because it's kind of illegal. No one's going to punish you, but it's better to grow it. So you can just use white sage for any of these things. And for the dreaming, if you really are interested in your own dreaming, maybe mugwort, freshly cut, put in a pillow so that you can smell it when you go to sleep. You can take a little bit and chew it before you go to sleep and ask for a dream. You can take a little bit of white sage and chew it as well and ask for a dream. It's completely harmless. It's small amounts, but in large amounts, it's got toxicity. It's got thiones in it. So this, as you can see on the right, I've got many, many medicines. Each one is for a different intention. This is what I learned from the Sangomas. There's one for anything. So in reality, this is my informed consent. When somebody has a contract with my ancestors, they come for divination, I give them these medicines. Even if they don't express it, they're going to be helped. But to express it and express it aloud is really important. That's probably only half of the ones I've got because my main job at the healing center was twofold: to learn about witchcraft and sorcery, which I knew nothing about before. When I was initiated, I really felt like I was like an intern who needed a residency program. And the other thing they sent me there for is to learn plant medicines because it was a very biodiverse area that I was in. So these are the basic principles. And it's going to be online and in terms of recording, so you can revise this if you want. It's really important to have a protective practice. If you are doing especially the heavy lifting, and quite honestly, we're all doing heavy lifting these days, the way the planet is going. So we all need a protective practice. Now, yoga, tai chi, qigong were designed for that. But Africans say we pray by singing and dancing. That can be fine. You can play a musical instrument as long as it's done for its own sake, not to look good and not to perform. You can walk on the beach, you can go for a hike, but you've got to do something almost every single day, sometimes twice a day, because even though you know that we are constantly under attack from other forces, never mind spiritual forces, that we need to do our work for. So the three L's: light, laughter, and love. The dark forces and the negative side of the spirit world cannot stand the vibration of these things: light, laughter, love, joy. It puts them off. Faith, belief, and trust So trust is surrender. The ancestors say it will be given to you according to the measure of your humility. Remember that it's not about you. You are just the messenger. You are just the shaman. You are just a vehicle. So we need to be humble. It will be given to you according to the measure of your love. That's the heart chakra. A Bushmen say if you want to be a powerful healer, you must love everybody, no matter what you think about them. You don't have to like them. You just have to love them as, namaste. I see the divinity in you. And you have to have faith, belief, trust, and surrender. You'll see how important this is for the bath ritual that I'm going to be talking about. Sound of high vibration will repel any negative force. So, didgeridoo, Tibetan gong, crystal bowls, even drumming, and even the rattle, in the moment, all good. Sacred chants, sacred mantras, bhajans, kirtans, anything like that are really, really important. Sound, can shatter resistances and get rid of dark forces. So this is something else you can use, and you can use all of these together if you're under attack. Incense, the ancestors say that incense, you'll see why, is one of the most powerful things that you can do. It's like a spiritual shower. If you smudge somebody, you are cleansing. There's not going to be any dark forces around there. If you think of all these things, you think of yourself going to a Las Vegas casino. I had to do that once because I had to go through the casino every day to go to a surgical convent. I really felt bad just going through the place. The opposite is true for somebody that's of the dark. Anything of the light, they cannot stand it. So you use all these things, incense, sound, the three L's, and so on. Taking in something, imbibe something sacred can protect the soul. Put a white sage leaf or something sacred, cedar, in your water. Think of the sacred plants that I didn't mention as anything with aroma, like rosemary, like lavender, certainly white sage. All the sages, you've got three of them that are incense driven, purple sage, black sage in California. They're not as good as white sage. White sage is fantastic. It's probably one of the best ones I've ever come across. The Native Americans use it a lot. So saging is really important. It'll get rid of dark forces. They've shown in India that you can decrease bacterial count in the temples from the incense. So it has a very profound effect on everything. Water, I'm going to talk about a little bit separately, but you probably all know about Emoto's work. I only knew about that after I was told to do these sacred baths by the Sangomas. But water has vibration, it has resonance, it has memory, it has consciousness, and Emoto showed that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. A coherence, it takes a village. So if you look at indigenous people, it takes, when the Bushmen do their trance, everybody's there, children as well. The same thing with my initiation. I was never in the 101 or anything like that. There were at least 6 people helping me with what I did, and often very, very much more. Native Americans are the same. Most indigenous cultures are the same. So if you can do it in community, especially if you're under severe attack, coherence is important. That is, the sum of the parts is much more than the whole. Originally was described by the Maharishi, who did a research on it, that group meditation is usually more powerful than just an individual because everybody's parts are making it more than the whole. Perseverance, the ancestors say, be patient in the face of evil, patience in the face of evil, and do your spiritual practice every day to get balance. I kind of recommend, even if you don't do yoga, that the warrior poses in yoga, you can learn them online. Some of the easy balancing poses to see if you're in balance, the tree pose, if you can do other ones, by all means. Maybe some inversions. If you can do a headstand, then you know you're in balance. Try and find something where you know that you can be in balance, but it doesn't matter. As long as you do something, it doesn't matter. So I want to talk here. You can see Emoto's work. If he exposed water to a love vibration, prayed to the water, said good things to the water, put Mother Teresa's picture there, played Mozart to the water. These are the kind of crystals that he got. If he said hateful things to the water, he put Hitler's picture there, he played heavy metal music to it, he got hideous crystals. So when you take a bath and you put sacred medicines in them, juniper, rosemary, lavender, sage, any one of the sages, cedar. Cedar is incredibly important as incense. You can buy little cedar blocks which you can burn uh, if you don't have the sage. There's Western incense cedar in California. You can burn that if if you've got a tree like that, or you can get hold of some. So I want to just go through the way I tell my clients to do the baths, which is what I was taught by the Sangomas. Firstly, you've got to have the intention. So you've got to say what you want to the field because of the law of free will. So let's say, for instance, you have a healing space, you have a shamanic space, we'll use that as an example. And now you're asking the ancestors to find you a better space. You were looking for something better. So you put it out there. I need a space that will help me and will help me do more for my patients. Should always be about somebody else, not about you. Can be about you if it can help somebody else. That'll get, the ego out of the way. Then they want attention to detail. They want the context of what you want. You give them the context of what you feel you would like to have in your healing space. And you can breathe in white light and think of all the things you want to breathe in. And then you breathe out the thick black smoke of anything you want to get rid of that's getting in the way of that hasn't served you in the past. You do a meditation, you give them context. They will handle the details in line with your greater good. So that's important. It won't actually necessarily turn out the way you want it to be. It'll turn out the way that they want it to be because it's in line with who you really are. I just found for myself, whenever I did things which wasn't in line with their intention, no doors open for me. They won't close doors because of, you can go down the wrong road. They'll let you do that because of free will. You can screw up. But I found that things wouldn't open for me, and I got the feeling that this wasn't in line with what they wanted. When it was something they wanted, weird things would happen. They will only realize in retrospect that they had manipulated. So always go to your altar and say thank you, because gratitude is so essential for the relationship between you. So intention, attention to detail, give them the context of your imagination. You've got to do the action. The more passion, the more power, the stronger you do it, the more you intensify the ritual, the more the field will reward you because of the intensity of your work. And then you've got to affirm, maintain, sustain your wish. Why? Your guides are living in a non-space-time reality. They are living in the present moment. For them, free will is in the present moment. So they want to know, do you want it today? Do you want it tomorrow? Do you want it next week? Do you want it next month? So you start off with, maybe doing 6 baths, one for each direction in a reasonable period of time. And then you repeat them maybe once a month or every 3 months if you're getting what you want. Maybe then the bath will be for gratitude. Frequently, I've seen that witchcraft doesn't go away in one go. I've often had folks come for bones, and I say, you have intrusive spirit of your grandfather. What happened? Did he abuse you? And yeah, he abused me. And he said, yeah, I went to a psychic, and they said they got rid of him. Well, the trouble is that if you have a witch and they're working with a spiritual mafia, it requires diligence. You've got to keep on doing it. You've got to continue. It's, affirm, maintain, sustain. It's very important. So it's really important to use the senses in your bath. It doesn't have to be a bath. You can do it on the beach. You can do your imagination. You can sprinkle the little sacred plants around you. Do it at sunset or at sunrise with nobody there. Sensory meditation, you can do the same thing. You can do it in a sacred pool or somewhere where it's still good to put the medicine around you, or in the ocean while you're floating. Always be sure that there's no one around to distract you. The senses are really important. You have to feel it in your body so that you are putting that sensation out into the field and you're owning it in your subconscious and your limbic system. You've got to believe, you've got to have trust, you've got to have faith, you've got to be non-attached to the outcome. If you're too attached to the outcome, it almost implies you don't have faith, you're not surrendering to the field. So let your intention go into the field, let it go, and then let them handle the details and don't be too attached to it. It doesn't mean you shouldn't affirm, maintain, sustain. But if you do the bath like 10 times a day, they're going to say, what's the matter with this guy? He's mailing the letter 10 times. He doesn't trust us, so they probably won't come to the party. So this is really important in terms of using the sacred plants. What I would say is what you do, you should shower, bathe, do a cleansing bath before your sacred bath. Set up your bath with incense, burn an incense candle, play sacred music, put sacred plants in the bath, sage, juniper, cedar, rosemary, whatever, doesn't matter. And then immerse in the bath, immerse completely, and do your imagination, your intention in the way I've described. When you are done, it's quite a good idea to breathe in white light of what you want and to breathe out the thick black smoke of what you want to get rid of. And then you get out of the bath, you dry off. It doesn't hurt to get your hair wet, or if you've got long hair, you sprinkle some of the medicated water on your hair. Get out of the bath, dry off, let all the thick black smoke down the bath. Remember that it's been neutralized by the sacredness in the water anyway, but flush it down as well. Dry off and walk out of the bathroom. Do not look back. If you look back, they're going to say he's not sure. It's like the thing, I think I want it. Same sort of thing like when you forgive your ancestors for what they've done to you. You can't say, I think I forgave them. It has to be completely 100% for the good side of the field, the good side of the astral and the causal to cooperate. So what deters, just in general, for faith, surrender, commitment, will, passion, courage, impeccability. The minute you're not impeccable, like you maybe even unconsciously. I mean, I know I made a lot of mistakes in my early practice, so I was far from impeccable. But what I did learn was when I wasn't impeccable, your shield, your spiritual shield gets broken. And then if you've got some serious contenders that are against you, they can get in. So impeccability is really very important. Like I said, the humility, the love, the belief, and not letting it be about you, but about somebody else that you're helping. Spiritual practice, and not only your own spiritual practice to keep you in balance, but a spiritual guide practice. Use your altar, have a party for your guides if you haven't already. If you don't know who they are, put a crystal or crystals there. I'm not very good at channeling who they are. I don't know whether they're male or female, but it doesn't matter. They will respond to requests. It doesn't matter if you don't know the name or you haven't seen them. They will help you if you are in terms of the light. And attend to the ambushes, the potholes. Some of you know the story about the 5 chapters. I don't have time to go through it now, but don't fall into the same pothole again and again and again. Be vigilant. Remember that there is no growth without conflict. So, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So you'll be stronger and stronger. I just want to highlight the energy involved here. And we've talked about all these things, but I want to relate them in terms of the still beings. That's the still beings are the elements like the stones, the crystals, and all that stuff. The growing beings that are the water element, which are the plants. The wild beings, which are the air element, which are the wild animals. I don't use animal parts, but certainly a feather to smudge with. And you can have a bone. I certainly use animal parts in my divination. You can wear a bone around your neck as a talisman. So we want to invoke all of the beings of nature and all of the elements as well as the chakras. So if you think of the first chakra as being the earth chakra, ground yourself with spiritual practice and with your ancestor practice. Remember that sacred plants are also part of the earth element, but they really are more part of the water element because without the water, they can't grow. But they need both. So you can use them at any level, the first or the second chakra. Crystals, semi-precious stones, precious metals, and semi-precious metals. Things like copper or even gold. Remember that gold was used in the Buddhist temples because in all the old days before it became about money, it was about the strong vibration. All of these things have vibration. Crystals should be purified. You should wrap them in brown rice, put them in the fridge overnight or the freezer, and re-energize them for your intention. And the ones that are really powerful are tourmaline, iron pyrite, jasper, obsidian, but it doesn't matter as long as they're clear or they're white or they're blue or they're pink or they're red, all the better. Excuse me. So then the second chakra, that's our sexual chakra of regeneration of the species, of elimination, of digestion, is the water element, and water is cleansing. And this is where the baths come in. And you can make the water sacred by all the methods that I've talked about, the sacred plants and the baths. Steam is a form of water. So you need fire for steam, you need fire for incense. The sweat lodge is kind of like one-stop shopping. You have coherence, you have chanting, so you have the sound, you have sacred plants on the red hot rocks, and you have steam to cleanse. I had to cleanse with steaming for my initiation, but it was like a mini sweat lodge. It could only hold one person. I had a pot between my legs with boiling water, with sacred plants in it, and steamed, and sitting in there for about 45 minutes. Was very, very cleansing, connecting to spirit. So fire inspires, transforms. The third chakra of ego below the diaphragm is your power chakra. And remember, we're talking about the lower chakras. This is where maybe you're going to have the mosquitoes at your picnic. When you get into the heart chakra, you become visible to the field, to the dark side of the field. You might be visible when you're below the diaphragm, but certainly when you're above it, you will become visible. If you are powerful, you'll be visible even when you're in the lower chakras. Remember pranayama, breath work. You can learn breath techniques online very easily on YouTube. Ujjayi breathing, UJJ. AYI or alternative nostril breathing will put you in a relaxed alpha state within like a minute, and you can do that before you do your healing, which is going to be about love, before you do your divining or whatever you're going to do. You should open sacred space, light a candle, maybe burn some incense before, invite your guides in, maybe do a bit of pranayama or centering yourself with a drum or something with a rattle. And this is going to open your heart now for doing your work with your clients. The throat chakra is the chakra of air, so is the heart chakra. They're both the element of air. And this is your chakra of creative expression. So sing, chanting. If you can play a musical instrument, it's even better. Tibetan gong, didgeridoo, or play music. It doesn't matter. All the things we've talked about, express your intentions aloud. Words have power that go to the spirit world more than if you just say them silently to yourself. If you look at the hierarchy of vibration, chants and sound is very powerful, but incense is even more powerful. It's sort of up near there by the nostrils, by the sixth chakra, but they're all good. It doesn't matter what you use. Incense, I didn't mention cedar is really a nice incense, aromatic plants in your bath. And then, of course, the breath of the creator. Kabir said, "What is God? The breath within the breath." You can get in contact with the creative force with your pranayama. So it's not just confined to your lungs and your alpha state of being. You can connect to the creator. You can connect with the ether. You can connect with the top chakra, and prayer, meditation. All these things will help. So let's do the meditation because it's been a bit of a heavy trip. I want to make it light. So I want you to sit up straight and close your eyes and relax your neck, relax your shoulders, relax your jaw. And breathe in white light, breathe out thick black smoke. Breathe in all the positive things that you got from the talk. Breathe in the nature boundness of the shaman. Breathe in the elements. Breathe in the beings of nature that can help us, the elements that can help us. Breathe in white light. Breathe out the thick black smoke of anything you want to get rid of. And then the song is actually a Celtic song. The words are not mine. It's called Patrick Shield. And no doubt he used nature as a shield for himself. So we can use that today and end off on a nice positive note because there's nothing bad that can't be reversed.
I rise today through the grace of heaven, the warmth of the sun, the radiance of moon, the splendor of fire, the speed of lightning. I rise today through the grace of heaven, the warmth of the sun, the radiance of moon, the splendor of fire, the speed of lightning. Lightness of wind, depth of the sea, stability of earth and rock. Lightness of wind, depth of the sea, stability of earth and rock. Lightness of wind, depth of the sea, stability of earth and rock. Lightness of wind, depth of the sea, stability of earth and rock. Deep peace of the running water to you, deep peace of the flowing air, deep peace of the quiet earth to you, deep peace of the shining stars. Deep peace of the running water to you, deep peace of the flowing air, deep peace of the quiet earth to you, deep peace of the shining stars. I rise today through the grace of heaven, the warmth of the sun, the radiance of moon, the splendor of fire, the speed of lightning.
Okay, can slowly come back and then we'll take some questions.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a wonderful meditation. Thank you for sharing that with us. Um, so I practice the Andean tradition, which comes from the mountains of Peru. And in that tradition, they refer to what's called the black light energy, which is which I feel is some kind of primordial energy that can be used to create with. It can be used for healing, but it can also, I found that it's my belief that this energy can be also be used to create expressions of sorcery. And so I was wondering if there was anything like this in Sangoma, if there's some kind of Yes, there's a source for that this energy that perhaps these shamans use who do dark magic source from.
If it's dark magic, that's one thing. If it's darkness for the sake of light, it's all about intention. So I don't think that whatever the tradition is, it doesn't really matter what you call the force. It depends on what the intention is. If the intention is to heal somebody and you need that force to heal them and you have no agenda that's going to influence you or anybody related to you, it's purely for that person that can help them. That's great. The only thing I would warn about is the nocebo effect, if it feels dark to the person, it may have a contrary effect. But the thing is, it's all about semantics because all of you are doing the same work, but we have different words for it. We have different ways of expressing it. And I think my job has been because I've got like three genres of ancestors. There's African, of course, that was my source, and Celtic and Kabbalistic. And they want universals, and they're not interested in anybody putting a stamp on anything. So whatever it is that's for the light and that can help somebody, and whatever you call it, it doesn't really matter what you call it. Yeah.
We were talking about ego. Is it ego when you say I am something, or okay, I'm a healer. Um, I talk to angels to bring up a conversation to somebody, or to try to help them in a way. Is that ego talking when you want to
I
express
think
something?
think if you need to take credit for what God has given you, if it's clear that you're talking about something given to you by the Creator that is making you being able to do something that you couldn't do otherwise, then it's not ego. It's not pride. You're just taking credit for what you've been given. You shouldn't apologize for it. I think it's just a question of how you say it and how you claim to, say it. If you'll know when it's the ego or not. If you are saying to somebody, I think I can help you with this, and they say, well, why? Well, you say, I sometimes have sources which are coming from another place, which might be helpful to you. I would be very careful about saying angels, because if you look at, the very few people who actually can contact the archangels. I think that it's possible if you've got a very high vibration, but I think sometimes the angel that you see is actually a causal advanced spirit who is embracing the energy of that angel. Maybe it's the Gabriel energy of courage and strength, and you think, and maybe he's calling himself Gabriel. Like I'm David, but it doesn't mean I'm King David. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. The four archangels are there for you. There's the Uriel, who's light, illumination, mystery, who, according to Kabbalah, is in the north, and Gabriel is in the west. They have, the directions are not germane to the Native Americans. It's also seen. Isaiah had a vision about the angels, and Gabriel is in the west. Raphael, he or her, is in the south, and Michael is in the east. And Gabriel is courage and strength. Raphael is healing, and Michael is light, illumination. Sorry, is love, inspiration, new beginnings. You can call for yourself on any of those angels anytime you want to, just like you can call on the Great Spirit, or if you're a Christian, you can call on Jesus. But to go and say to somebody else, I am going to tell you what I can help you through Gabriel, I don't think that works. I think they're there for us. They're meant there to be help. We are meant to use them when we need them, but we can't use them. In other words, I think is what I'm saying now. So what you're doing is fine. You embrace the angel, and you feel good, and that's what the angel is there for. That's real. That then you are connecting with the angel energy. But
Okay.
but to actually to say that I'm channeling Raphael, that's a whole other story. And I'm getting Raphael to go and heal you. No, but Raphael can help you personally, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Couple other questions in the chat. I actually had one. One of your slides, it said that envy is the root of witchcraft and sorcery. And I think I've heard you talk about greed as the root of evil. Is that what your tradition believes? Is there sort of one thing at the root of evil, or is it multiple things?
It's multiple things, and but basically, this is what my teacher told me, and my Swazi teacher. He said, witchcraft, a witch has a heart of evil, but also, of course, a byproduct of that is greed, and the byproduct of that is power, and pride, and all the other things that come with it, which we have in our politicians. So it's greed, it's power, but it comes from a heart of envy. But they all come together. Absolutely, greed
Mm.
is the biggest thing because what I think this guy Cassandra said. Greed is not filled with money any more than thirst is with salt water. It's like they're drinking salt water the whole time. They want more and more. Power corrupts, complete power corrupts completely, and greed is at the heart of that. But it's envy, basically. It's like
Hmm.
he's got something that I want. I admire that. They're not normal in that they have an evil inclination. I want that power. I want to be like that person. That's
Hmm.
greed because that person can give me, if I can be that person, I'll get what I want. And that person is going to be greedy and is going to be envious. So I think the covetousness is only is about witchcraft on steroids. Is those who they're coveting, they're envious, they're greedy, they power lust, and it's all about power, money, the control, and so on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Another question is there a way to tell the difference between spirit possession and mental illness?
That's a really good question. I listened to that CNN program because it was kind of interesting, and there was definitely a whole school of thought that from the priestly side that they were going to try and tackle the mind problem first. But I think there is true possession when you see certain characteristics that cannot be explained. Like you see a child who has the strength of three men. There's something else that's going on there. It's not just and I think a lot of the people that are possessed, these days are going out and killing people. It's like they've got mental. It starts with a mental problem. It starts with soul loss. It starts with a broken aura. It starts with, the priest was saying social media abuse. Usually the drug people are not problematic because they're kind of out of it. They can't do much. They're just completely gone. But I think it starts with soul loss, and then the possession comes, and then the spirit that's possessed, that's a perverted human, doesn't want to go because they are loving what's going on. They can't otherwise, they're in the hell realms where the cravings are worse for alcohol, for sex, and all these things, and now they've been freed. So I think there's a mental part to it, but there are certain criteria. I think that the real priests. I remember the Pope when he came, the Pope who died, got a whole convention together of exorcists just to support them because really. The only people I know who could do it are some maybe Sangomas in South Africa, like the kind of woman who did the femba on me and sucked out the dog, or the bushman who sucked out the snake. Maybe I'm not capable of handling that. So I think there's both, but it probably starts with a mental. It starts with a mental crisis, It starts with soul loss, and you become a vehicle because, there's nothing there anymore. Something can come in. I don't know if that answers your question because I think the answer is very limited. I don't know basically.
Yeah, this woman is working with somebody who's schizophrenic
Yeah.
and just wonders what she's actually dealing with.
You
Yeah.
see, schizophrenia can be not bad. It can be somebody who's very sensitive and is open to the field and can't handle it. So that's a whole other story. Like in South Africa, if you were psychotic or schizophrenic, you might become a Sangoma. They would
Hmm.
go and they would take you and they would channel the spirits in a way that they could. That mathematician, I forget the name of the movie. It was a brilliant movie about the brilliant mind, I think it was called. And after a while, he had all these spirits talking to him. So then he was crazy. He was schizophrenic. He was whatever you want to call him. But he was, multiple personality disorder is sometimes being possessed by all these spirits. And if you can channel the ones that are good and say, no, the other ones must go. I remember the one part of the movie, he'd say, no, not now. I don't need you now. And he's busy with his mathematical formula. So he had it down, but he wasn't a shaman. Uh, so I think that psychotic people, that's a different story. We're talking about people who murder, who do terrible things. They're usually not. They're doing the satanic things. If you take
Hmm.
some of these people who are um, influenced by the media, that are, what do you call them? The word for it, it's escaping me. But they don't. It's a soul loss thing. For some reason, their soul is lost, and then they go onto these media, and it gets worse and worse and worse. But they're not
Hmm.
necessarily possessed. But the soul is gone. It's like the hitman who's teaching another hitman. He always says, the first one is always the most difficult. After the first one, your soul's pretty gone. You murder somebody in cold blood, you've already got soul loss. And
Hmm.
that's where the gangs, they're possessed with bad spirits. But they're not going to go to the priest. They're enjoying it.
Right. This is so helpful in terms of just thinking about lots of different clients. It's really a
Yeah.
very useful conversation. There's a question in here, and I know nothing about Hermetic Kabbalah, but someone is asking, do you think it's important to connect with the Hermetic Kabbalah?
I don't know what Hermetic Kabbalah is.
Okay.
You can enlighten us.
You were talking about the Kabbalah, or the tree of life, right? With the spheres
Yes,
going.
yes.
So, whatever you were referring to, is it the Kabbalah and the tree of life? And do you work with that? Do you feel it's important to connect with the tree of life in this moment of time? Because you were talking about Malkut and the spheres of Kether and, going the serpentine path upwards. So I just wonder how
Yeah.
that came in.
Some of my ancestors are Kabbalists, and when I wrote my first book, I thought I knew something about the tree of life because I was using it together as a comparison for the chakra system. They're very similar, they're just different models. I like both models. So it doesn't matter which model you use. The tree of life is very useful, and I highly recommend it. And every time I approach the subject, like my second book, I knew a little bit more about it. Now I know a lot more about it, but those who think they know don't know. So what Kabbalists say: those who speak do not know; those who know do not speak. So I try not to speak, and I don't know either. Both of them. Yeah, but I think Kabbalah and the Tree of Life is a very powerful tool for you. And if you're familiar with all the Sfirot and the love Sphira, the ego Sphira, your sword and Tiferet and Keter and their polarities, it's very similar to the yoga chakras. It's a bit more detailed, a bit more difficult, but I highly encourage you to study it. It's great.
Can I add one more question to that?
Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, like in all these kind of, let's say, methods and systems, some people talk about the corruption of certain technologies and systems, and that how do we know, when we work with something, that it's not corrupted, or is it just the way how we use it with a good intention? I mean, it's a big, maybe a topic that maybe is too going too far away, but maybe you can have like any advice.
Well, it's like I'm talking about. There's light and there's dark, and it just depends how you use it. It's all about intention. So yes, you can pollute the chakra system, you can pollute the tree of life, you can pollute all the things I'm talking about. They're all the same. It's all about intention. Anybody else?
Thank you
There,
so much.
I see Todd's hand is raised again.
Yes, this is his daughter.
Okay.
So I was curious if, when my dad is meditating and doing his thing, is it possible that any tricksters or dark spirits or like negative, bad stuff like that could be trying to impersonate the angelic and the higher realm to influence him?
Yes, that's a very good question. If again, it's all about how you feel in your heart. If he's relating to Raphael and it's helping him and it's not hurting anybody else, then he's connecting with the Raphael energy. But Raphael is not really a guide to the normal people like you and me and your dad. But you can call on them for help when you're in emergencies. Yes, but what you're talking about tricksters, which is what the talk is about. The evil ancestors can come in and they can affect you and pretend to be people that are your spirits, and they're not okay. I remember once throwing bones for some guy who'd been to one of these cowboy towns, where it was like a museum, and he picked up a cowboy spirit, but he kind of liked it. He thought it was kind of cool and it's not okay because he's a low level guy. It doesn't mean any harm, but it gets in the way of your energy field. So you're taking strain in terms of having something like that around you. So if there's a question of whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, whoever's involved should go to see a shaman or curandero or psychic and find out, is this person really maybe from the lower astral, who is looking to you for entertainment or otherwise for his own agenda. And because you may not be able to tell, but usually if you go with the heart, you'll tell. It depends what they're doing and what they're saying. If you go with the heart and it doesn't feel good, please ask it. Always be respectful. Say, please, you need to go. You don't belong here. Don't ever, make a challenge or be rude to them. That's really important. And they'll up their energy.
Okay.
Anybody else in the chat box? Yeah, a lady with her hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to, could you remind us what you said about seeing a grass snake?
A grass snake.
Yeah.
Like I said, your ancestors sometimes can't talk to you. So they can manipulate animals. And usually if they manipulate an animal and it's not in the right place at the right time, for instance, if this grass snake crosses your path, or it's actually on your path and it's not even moving, that's probably been held there, manipulated there by a spirit force that's positive, that wants to say, listen, I'm around. So they often will use an animal that happens to be there on your walk or whatever. So it may not be your usual power animal. Maybe your usual power animal is a hummingbird. And then, if there's one around, they will manipulate it to be in a certain position for you because they can move it. They can't move it indefinitely. So that you'll see a hummingbird in a tree and it's very close to you. It's very, normally that would take off because it's scared of humans. The same thing with a snake. But, I think the thing about it is always look on the positive side. Instead of being a skeptic and a cynic and saying, oh, it's just a grass snake, say, that's great. Go to your altar, thank your ancestors and say, that's awful. Because it's a nice thing to see. A snake is a powerful symbol of kundalini, of losing your skin, of a new beginning, of moving into the east and so on. So always take whatever you see and make something positive out of it rather than negative, rather than questioning it. I think Einstein said, it was Einstein, there are two ways to live your life. One is everything's a miracle, and the other is that nothing is a miracle. Live like everything is a miracle. There's enough darkness around. Take your snake and love it.
All right. Well, I really want to thank you so much, David. This has really been wonderful.
You're so welcome. Thanks for inviting me. It was a pleasure. And I'm impressed so many people are here on middle of the day. So you obviously made an effort to be here. So I appreciate that. Thank you to you all. Yeah. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.